Okay, so with regard to Tax Act, Appendix C is going to give you some specific information about getting started on Tax Act. Again, read through this as you're setting it up. So, as I had mentioned earlier, so lots of tax software products are on the market. They're all similar, but yes and no, they're similar. I think what most people are familiar with regard to tax software is, oh shoot, I can't even think of the name of it, the Intuit product. Cripes. TurboTax, that's
We
it.
also have H&R Block as well.
H&R Block has also become a lot more popular. Those programs, what they do, because they're designed for individuals to prepare their own tax returns, they're made as simple as possible, and they're a series of questions. You know, did you work this year? Yes. Did you receive a form called W-2? It's very simple for people who don't have any tax knowledge. Professional tax software is assuming you know what you're doing, okay? And so it is set up differently. Now there's some software out there that will have, might have some questions along with it, but most of the software is not going to be set up. Most of the professional software is not going to be set up that way. You're going to have like a data entry screen, and you're just going to, just through familiarity with the program, you're going to know where stuff goes, and you've got all that tax background knowledge to know what you're supposed to put in that box that's on the data entry screen. Tax Act, generally, they've got you entering like the actual documents in there as it's presented to you. So the W-2 form, you just transfer the information into it. Now, yes, I got this question, I can't remember if it was in here, about can you upload the documents? Normally, yes, but we're not going to do that because you need to get familiar with it, right? So most software, tax software as well, you can upload it and it will read it. But again, even if you're using software like that, you have to double check it, because that software is not necessarily always right, or it's not putting it in the right place. Or you may have some nuance about it that the program just doesn't know how to handle. So you all should know where, has everybody downloaded it? Okay, I'm getting nods, okay. So once you download it, there will be an icon on your desktop, and you can see in class we've got the icon here. We're using 2023 because 2024 isn't finished yet. So they usually come out with, if there haven't been any tax changes, and I don't know that we have any outstanding tax legislation right now, who knows? Congress likes to pass tax laws at the very end of the year, or even at the beginning of the following year when you can't do anything about it anymore. But I don't know that we have anything outstanding this year. But we're using 2023 because 2024 hasn't finished yet. We don't even have tax forms, I think, for 2024 yet. Those usually get finalized toward the end of the year, unless there have been major changes. And there have been times when the tax season has been pushed off because the forms are not yet available, because we've had some sort of change in the tax law, and they're still updating. I mean, think about that. There are people that's their job, is managing tax forms, and how that, you think about that, we looked at the complexity of it. Think about the people who put those together and having to get the wording exactly right, those technical writers. So updates. You're gonna get notifications a lot that there are updates. That's one of the things about tax software, there are updates all the time. And they usually have to do with some little, like somebody has found an error in something, you know, a particular number isn't being entered on the form properly, it's not carrying over, and so they've changed the software somehow, but everybody has to go through that update. Unfortunately, in class and on my lab, if an update is needed, I can't do it. So you guys are gonna have to inform me. Now I know a lot of you aren't using my lab, but you know, I mean, you can still use it even if you have a a PC, you can still use it if you want to. But if there is an update, tech support has to do it, has to do the update. So that's one of the inconveniences of that, is that we've got to go through a couple of steps to get those updates done. I wish I could do them myself. I can't. I can't even do them on my DMAC computer myself. So that's why I actually went out. For the longest time, I didn't have my own laptop, and this year I finally broke down. I bought my own laptop because I was so tired of always having to get tech support to do my updates for me. Like, you know, just forget it. I'll do it. I'll spend the money and do it. So updates are important. First time you're going to be asked for prepare information. You are the preparer. Input your name. Like I said, you can or not. You don't need to use your social security number. Don't put it in there. Just make one up. Enough strangers have your social security number. You don't have to put anything into the electronic filing information. Save and close. That completes the setup. So each time you run the program, it's going to ask you if you want to upgrade. Again, we're only installing the 1040. You saw in the download that you had options for a 990, a 1065, a 1041, 1120, 1120S. These are all different. You're going to find out what all of those tax returns are, but they're for different types of entities. They're not for individuals. You only need the 1040. There's always this tip of the day. They say you can read the tip and close the page, or you can just close the page. You don't have to read it. You can X out of it or just whatever. There's space for lots of clients, so when you are preparing your tax returns, your old tax client, each chapter you're going to do a tax return for a different client. So we're not carrying forward clients from one week to the next, from one chapter to the next. So you're going to have, at the end, you're going to have a list of clients in your software. You'll be able to access all of them. And it'll be right on that front page. Number of tabs across the top of the screen. Client manager is the one that they want you to focus on here. Okay, so to create a new tax return, you click on the add client button, which I showed you earlier, how to do that. That dialog box pops up asking if you want a new client, an existing client, or something else. Make sure you add new 2023 client when you're first opening that client. When you have already created the client and you're going back in, you can just click on the client's name in that list and you can go right back in there. Basic information about the client, filing status, client address, all of that stuff. And then you click create client. And then they're in there. Okay? You don't have to do that again for that particular client. On the left side, and if you want to pull it up while you're here, while we're doing this, that might be helpful. While I get a drink of water. I'll give you a minute just to open that up. Should have thought of that before when I started. So if you want to put in yourself as a preparer, if you haven't already done that, you can just create a dummy client right now if you want. I mean, you can put your information in there if you want. I'm not saying that you're a dummy, but if you want to do that, so you can get in there. All right, create client. I'm assuming you're to that point. So on the left side is a listing of forms, schedules, and worksheets that are the most commonly used. If you scroll down the left side, you'll find a pull-down menu with additional forms and worksheets. One of the additional pull-down menus is documents received. You will use some of the input documents in this section to record client information. For example, one of the choices is a W-2, but not all information that you receive from a client is going to be on a form or a document. You'll record the W-2 information for a client on the input form in this section. On the right side is the basic information worksheet. The information you already added when you created the client is shown here. Most of the items on this long worksheet are not needed for our purposes, but are important when preparing real tax returns. So at this point, you've created a client and recorded basic information. You now need to record the data needed to prepare a complete tax return. Much of the information is recorded on input forms in the documents received section on the left side. This is where information on wages, interest, dividends, and many other items are recorded. Once you've inputted tax-related information, you can look at the 1040 to see how the data appears. On the left side toward the top is Form 1040. Click on that form, and on the right side you'll see what the 1040 looks like with the information you have recorded so far. So you'll notice, so for the very first one that we're doing that's due next Thursday, the information, the correct forms are in your textbook. For all of the other chapters, 2 through 9, because that's how many more we're doing of this Tax Act, I have uploaded the correct answer. So you can look, when you look on this, you can look to see if it matches what is on that form. So you know what it's supposed to look like. You've got the answer, but this is to help you verify that you've got it in the right place and everything. As you click on various input documents or other forms or schedules, they'll appear at the top of the right side window as a new tab. So there's a list of tabs up at the top. Unless you X out of those, it's just going to create more tabs. Okay. So you'll be like me with your phone, and my kids go through and they're like, oh, how do you have so many of these open? Because I never close them. You can remove tabs by clicking on the X on the tab. It doesn't mean that you're deleting anything. You're just closing that tab. Once you're done working on a client, click Save at the top to make sure everything is saved. Then click on Clients. That will take you back to the initial starting page with a list of all the clients that you have created. Okay. When you restart the program later, it will take you back to the Client Manager page to open the existing client, highlight the client name, and click Open Return. Or I think you could just double click too, if I remember right. No, yep, that's what they say, double click. And then you can start the process all over again. Okay, so inputting data. Tax Act is a highly complex computer program. It is, it's very complex. I mean, think about all the information that has to go in. The entire tax code, for the most part, has to go into that software. Software recognizes that information starts on a certain form or schedule and then is carried forward to other forms or schedules. So like I had said, we have the 1040 is just a summary form. There's all this back information that's originally entered on different schedules that then gets transferred to that 1040. So the name and address of the taxpayer are initially entered on the basic information worksheet and then transferred to 1040. Tax Act will automatically transfer that data to other forms that require the information, and you'll see that there are other forms that will have the taxpayer information on it as well. You don't have to enter it in again. You just do it the once. Tax Act knows everywhere that it needs to go. As you use it, you'll notice that most numerical information is shown either as a black number on a blue rectangle or as a black number on a white background. Numbers on a light blue rectangle are numbers that you can enter directly on the form that you are working on. So you don't have to go to a back, at least for the input, there's no like separate data entry part. Well, there is, you don't have to do it, as long as it's a number on a light blue rectangle. Black numbers on a white background are calculated or derived from another form or worksheet. If you right click on one of these numbers, you can then click on the folder icon and go to the supporting form or worksheet. If you click on a black number on a white background and try to enter a number, the software will warn you that you are trying to alter a calculated value. You can then choose to either go to the supporting schedule or you can overwrite it. Don't overwrite it. You'll screw everything up. There are a couple of cases though, like depreciation. I know a year or two ago we had an issue with the depreciation was not calculating, it was off by $1, which for accountants that really drives you crazy. And so we would just go in and enter the correct number there. It just wasn't, something was wrong with it. So you can choose, okay, supporting schedule, or you can override it. The software advises you not to enter information directly, but to go to the appropriate supporting form. We concur. Until you have a much better understanding of how tax software works, you should use, or unless you're specifically told otherwise, which that's I told the students, just override it. You should use the supporting schedules. If you fail to do so, you can get unanticipated results that may create an erroneous return. This can occur, for example, when the software transfers a number or two or more follow-up forms, to 2 or more follow-up forms. If you change the number on one of the follow-up forms but not on the other, you'll have an erroneous return. Because this information, it'll go to different, not just one schedule and then bleed through to the 1040, but maybe several. Okay? Printing tax returns. So preliminary versions of tax software generally issued in October or November. That's what I had said earlier. Final versions come out sometime in January. Software vendors want to make sure you're using the most up-to-date versions of the forms. This text comes with a preliminary version, which you can keep updated as noted above. Vendors require you to have an updated version before you can print any tax forms. Maybe I think we already encountered this where you couldn't print because we didn't have an update. So before Tax Act will allow you to print out a return, you need to have updated software. If you always update your software when you open, you are good to go. However, if not, you can manually update Tax Act by clicking online on the ribbon at the top of the page and then click on Check for Updates. The system will lead you through the process. Again, this only works on your computer. For the DMAC ones, we gotta get tech support to do it. Let's see. Oh, taxpayers are fictional. Really. We will also use the example taxpayers in later chapters. So you'll see that our very first Tax Act problem is from that what is it? Something to software. Shoebox to software within the first chapter. But our subsequent problems are not the shoebox to software problems there is a shoebox to software problem in each chapter. We only use the one in the very first chapter. After that, we use one of the tax return problems that's at the end of the chapter. So some of those, like you've been assigned tax return problems at the end of in Connect, but then I've chosen one of the other ones to be your Tax Act problem. Okay, so we're not, the shoebox to software, it continues through the semester. I did that the first semester that we made. This used to be a 3-credit class and we did not have time to actually work with software. Made it into a 4-credit class so that we actually do have time to work with software. I did it the first year. I used just that shoebox to software, and if students were finding they got to chapter 7 or 8 and they had screwed something up in chapter 2 and it was impossible for them to fix. It was way too advanced for them to be able to handle. So I switched it. We don't use that continuous. We start with a new client every single time. So if you're gonna screw up, you're just gonna screw up in that chapter. Okay, you've got a new chance for the next chapter. All right, questions. You got more step-by-step instructions in that shoebox to software problem. Questions? Okay. Now,